an official observer. I can't be
As you wish.
really at
You're
the
allowed.
table.
You're allowed to sit at the table. I hereby officially call to order this meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee on Thursday, July 11th at 6:05 p.m. This is going to be a shortened meeting because in approximately 25 minutes, maybe a minute or two earlier so we can get up there, we'll be heading upstairs to go to the Union Street planning meeting. Okay, so a couple of things that are pushed aside in this meeting, our discussion of the Transportation Committee and Energy Committee, and a brief recap on, I was going to say, a brief recap I want to put in there about Erica's conversation with Jessica and what we were going to bring forward tonight to talk about at Union or to see if we could get pushed. I was CC'd on the conversation and got involved with Jessica on that, and Jessica's recommended that we don't bring anything up to talk about in terms of Transportation or Energy Commission. First off, with Energy Commission, she doesn't really want us doing anything at this point. We've done what we did, putting together and formulating the basic plan. The mayor's got it, it's put out there. You know, if we know a name or something, we can bring it to Jessica, but she wants us hands off until that kind of forms itself. As far as the Transportation Committee is concerned, and forming the working group and letting people know that we want their participation on that. If it happens organically in conversation, so says Jessica, fine, but don't push it. This isn't the meeting for that. She doesn't want to derail it. So I know we were considering bringing things up.
Yeah.
So that's Jessica's opinion on that. I don't know if you have different opinions. Please feel free to
No, that makes
let them loose.
sense to me.
Okay, so that said, the next item we had is a brief recap, excuse me.
Oh, Freudian flip there.
Yes, I'm not sure Freud was involved, but it wasn't said. To see if any vettings have been done on what we were going over at the last meeting. Now, one thing I want to add is you probably all saw the information, the documents that Jessica put out. I had a conversation with Jessica about what we were talking about overall at the last meeting, timeline, January, having budget, advertising for our open forum meeting, and we had a $300 budget. I think I mentioned that at one point in the past, right? That budget was put together originally, unbeknownst to me, as kind of a standard thing that Jessica did when this committee was formed. That budget wasn't renewed. Every half year they go through this process. Well, when we hit the new year point, July 1, or half year point I should say, because we hadn't used it, and if anyone knows city politics, it's simple rules, you use it or you lose it. We're not at that point. In my opinion, we won't be at that point, which is fine until January, when we're going to be in a position to spend. In terms of what we might spend, they have resources they've been doing for open forums that involve simply putting out press releases to the various, the Gazette, the Summit. I'm not sure money will even be involved in that. We might do some additional flyers or who knows what. So, hey, good to see you. That's okay. So, it seems like most of our financial needs are covered, but just in case, I've begun drafting. I'm not completed with it yet, so I'm not going to present it to you, but I've begun drafting our budget request document, which I'll put again in the same allotment of $300. And Jessica thinks that's fine. She agrees with me, so I know we'll get support from the planning department on that. What else? There was a couple other things relating to the vetting in this whole process that we had. The documents that she put out, what did you guys think of them?
I definitely thought, I agreed that, there's probably a couple things that we could utilize. There's merit in some of those columns.
I felt it looked pretty much like what we would have done, and it's almost exactly like the kind of stuff we have already. All right.
Have we compiled a document that has, like in the master plan itself, there's recommendations of who might take something, if you have a project.
The best we have is when we've said vet so-and-so, vet so-and-so. That's been our only guide. I think we should focus more on adding that going forward, but we've gone through most of those things.
Right.
But as we go through the collation process, we'll, I'm sure, put those in. Okay, so overall, there's a template for us. The final thing in that conversation with Jessica, she talked about that. She also talked about that somebody had mentioned to her the need to read things out, which we began last meeting, I think. She'd had a conversation with someone prior to our last meeting about that and wanted to make sure we were doing it. And I assured her we were going to do that going forward because it helped everyone to... Are you all in agreement with that? The reading was a good thing.
At the last meeting,
I wasn't
we
here, so-
read we actually read aloud during the meeting the chapter or sections of the chapter. But
Specifically the introduction.
we agreed that we would add it as a small homework assignment prior to the meeting so that we all came with the context
Mhm.
of the chapter, which I think was the purpose of writing that anyway, my understanding of kind of contextualizing decisions.
And sort of along that note, I was going through my stuff and realized I have a lot of documents related to the work that we did in forming the master plan. And it occurred to me that I should at least offer, it might be appropriate to share that.
Cool.
I documented quite a lot. Some of it is the process and might not be that pertinent, but other things I think might be useful. Some of it's the documents that we used as reference.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all digital, so it's the kind of thing that I could might even all fit on a CD,
John, you've been holding out on us.
I didn't realize I had been, it kind of dawned on me that I was, yeah.
That sounds excellent.
So I'll put it all together and see what form it takes, or how much it amounts to, and then ask you guys what the best way you'd like to have it is. The only thing I probably don't want to do is print it all.
Yeah.
Of course. Maybe we could get a Dropbox or something.
That's a great idea.
All right. So then the last thing that I had before we really get into any of the recaps was I got a recap on a chapter review. I think I'd mentioned that John Mason from Parks and Rec had invited us to attend at the last meeting, the Parks and Rec meeting, to discuss with him some of the things that were in the chapter review before. We are on their agenda at 7 o'clock, July 17th at Pavilion number 4 in Onatuck Park. Now, I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm going to have to look at our minutes from the last meeting. I'll bring those up. Was I going to that, or was someone else going to that?
I thought Michael was going to go to that.
Michael.
I believe I have a conflict. Yeah, I have a conflict.
I think a bunch of us had conflicts, but I think
Yeah.
he maybe sidled up to do that. Or
I
you.
love-
He or you.
I love the first part.
Wasn't
Yeah,
me.
right. All right. Yeah, I don't have it there. I'm going to have to grab it. So I'll send an email to Michael, just clarifying that point, unless I find it in the minutes. Otherwise, I'll go. I can make it that Wednesday. Have there been any other communications, any other vettings that we've talked about in the last meeting or two? Any follow-up?
Not much. I started working on the oral history thing, and I don't really have anything probably else to report.
Okay. Well then, we have about, I'd say 10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes before we need to go upstairs. We only made it partially through the last chapter we were working on. So we could continue with that. I'm not sure we really have enough time to get far. Perhaps we could talk about the event or collating the data. These are steps that we have coming up in the future.
Which event?
And the open forum,
Oh, okay.
the meeting,
I thought you meant today's event.
No, we could talk about that too. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Talk about things in here that relate to what we might want to accomplish upstairs. What do you guys think?
I am really hoping to make a proposal for consideration to the group, and maybe you guys could tell me if you think it's appropriate. I ran it past a couple people, and there was a little bit of debate about what fell under the likely auspices of this meeting. So
The upstairs meeting?
yeah, the one we're about to go to. So I've mentioned, I think, in this group a couple of times that I'm kind of hoping to propose what I'm calling a facade beautification project. So we determined that that's probably not for this meeting, because when I reread the material, I guess there are architects and planners going to be part of this.
Yeah.
So what I decided to concentrate on was the possibility that we consider that the strip there where the Family Dollar is now, and that kind of that strip mall. over the years, I've talked to people, and it seems like most people agree that we have a disconnect between the Main Street section and the Cottage Street section, and that area is a significant contributor to the feeling that it's not one contiguous, pleasant walk. So I had tried to come up with what could be a solution to that. And so I was going to throw out to this group the idea that kind of counterintuitively that a solution might be to actually add an additional row of shops right along the sidewalk, so that the effect you get when you're taking the sidewalk from Main to the end of Cottage is more like the rest of Union Street, where you're walking up against shop windows and things, and you might be encouraged to window shop.
I want to make sure I understand where you're talking about. We're talking about the Cottage Union Junction? No.
No, the AutoZone to the family, the AutoZone to the bike path.
Okay, got it.
What is a parking lot with the AutoZone, the
Village Pizza.
Village
and
Pizza,
so-
Yeah,
Laundry,
I'm
the Family Dollar.
Okay.
So I don't mean to take over, I hope this isn't too loud.
Hit us.
So something had stuck with me that I'd heard, and I forget which mayor it was either Holyoke or Springfield a few years back, had described this problem as the asphalt gauntlet. Because there's nothing there, and you've got 15 feet of asphalt on this side and 15 feet of asphalt on that side. And so the thought that I'd come up with is, if you put another row of really small shops, and I've done a lot of research on that, and there are some really small shops. In fact, when I went to Australia last year, they were taking those storage containers now, and those are becoming stores. One storage container actually equals a store. I don't know if it has to be that small, but the idea would be then to create another set of shops along the sidewalk, so that you don't have that asphalt area to consider, and that you try to get the additional parking that you need maybe behind the Family Dollar in that area there. But that essentially what you're trying to do is create a pleasant walk, promote pedestrian activity and window shopping, and add to the number of retail spaces available. So I just wondered if anybody thought that
I think that's
missing
a
some
neat idea. I've heard a lot of these ideas lately that they come forth, and I've heard a lot of people complaining too. So I've been getting, I don't know why, people have been coming with all these opinions. The kinds of negative things, and I think when I show a website or some technology that I built, the best thing for me are not the compliments I get, but the criticisms. So I'll focus on the criticisms that I've been hearing from other people, so that's will help you present an argument. We don't need more stores. It is the most prevalent argument I've heard. We've got vacancies. Why do we need more shops? It was the same argument we had in building up. We don't have enough to fill. I've heard a lot of people talking about Eastworks in this union thing, and trying to join, because they're switching their entrances around, and trying to join Eastworks to the union, and then merging into Cottage. I've heard about the Cottage to Union joint, we're expanding the sidewalk to make that merge, and all these. And in every case, it'd be great if we could find a grant or find something, but the most prevalent argument I have is, why are we doing it? Everyone wants it to look better. That's great, streetscape improvements. But things like building new buildings, building up, changing in any ways that reduce traffic patterns by eliminating parking spots are a big one, because that's part of what you mentioned. The arguments against that are, traffic is getting worse, we don't want it to get worse, we don't want more shops, there's already empty vacancies. Those are the kinds of arguments I think that we'll most likely come up against when dealing, because those are the ones I've heard the most. I'm rambling.
Yeah, no.
There's a dose of negative, but that's the way it is.
I don't think the pedestrian flow gets limited by the narrow sidewalk coming up Cottage Street across from the pond.
Yeah.
In front of, but there's, I had a dream one night, literally, that someone took that sidewalk and expanded it with a boardwalk, a wooden boardwalk that was like 15 feet
That's funny, that's actually...
wide, and then that expands it, and then
On which side? On the pond side or the other side?
The other
On the other
side.
side. That's, I was just about to say, the group that's proposing the
Boardwalk.
the reuse of the mill building,
Oh,
had made their application to the Historic Commission. And during that conversation, I had asked about that, and they said that they didn't say they would, they said they were willing, that it hadn't been part of their plans, but I said, would you consider adding a boardwalk to expand the pedestrian throughway there? And they seemed very amenable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, it's not worth the paper it's
that
written
could be
on,
dream
but
prophecy right there.
but yeah, they might do it. I mean, we could try to encourage them, but if that project goes through, which I understand it still is expected to, they might be the ones that would do that, because it's a residential development, and that had come up. So we at least have somebody who's in a position to do it that said yes.
I wonder with your idea, if there wasn't a permanent building.
You mean
With your idea, yeah. I mean, you even have little things like hot dog stands and things, if they
Yeah.
authorized a little row out there of
Yeah, I was
vendors.
thinking of like food carts, because I sometimes think that, I don't know, one of the things I think about I actually know the person who runs the farmer's market.
Oh, yeah.
And while I think it's awesome, I feel like it would have more foot traffic if there was more, because like I have a CSA, so I actually don't need to go get more veggies, but I would love to like go just patron the concept of the farmer's market if there was like, I know there's cupcakes, but I don't think there's a lot more food vendors. And I feel like food vendors usually make a farmer's market really successful because everybody needs to eat 3 times a day,
Couldn't agree more.
So I feel like, don't we have a couple pop-up? Someone
Yeah.
told me that there's some really good,
There was one today over in Industrial Park.
yeah, like encouraging that I think is kind of the direction that like downtown development seems to, because people need to eat.
But the truth is, those businesses will go where the business is.
Right.
So, in order to encourage them there, we need the incentive to be some sort of continuous advertising, and we'd have to come up with a budget for that, but that seems feasible to me.
Well, and I wonder, do people think that it's actually an asphalt gauntlet? Am I right in that? Do people
It's
feel like
ugly.
that
I think it's ugly.
discourages
I'm so happy with the changes that have come. I mean, the metalwork that Matt put in there, that whole walkway that goes right now to where Tandem is, and then Tandem being, for me, what I see happening, that whole area there is fantastic, huge over in the last couple of years.
What metal structure?
The metal architecture that's, the little park that's right before
Oh,
you do the
yeah, you're
crosswalk.
pretty much talking outside of the plaza though. I mean, I'm not, what
But that's
John's
what
talking about. I
bike
don't-
traffic is, isn't it? I mean, that's the foot traffic and bike traffic that we're trying to merge into.
I'm more thinking of the traffic going from Union to Cottage. That's what I'm
Up and
thinking,
down.
not the other way around, but.
That's what I had heard. I had the impression
I-
that people had said, oh yeah, walking between, an easy example is during Art Walk,
Yeah.
between Old Town Hall and the Nashwauk Gallery, I will encounter people in that area, and everybody's just trucking, trying to make time to get, because there's nothing
Yeah.
there that is.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, it's funny that it only takes a parking lot to make those other shops feel like they're not part of it.
Yeah.
Because I would think that it'd be good for them as well if we can encourage people to go there. But people won't go there if they're trying to get, from here to here, and that part is up here. They're not going to do that.
And the shops that are in that building are so not designed for an art walk.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, we
Yeah,
had
so
once, we
that's-
had one that participated, the resale shop there. And yeah, now, what are you gonna ask, the laundry or the Village Pizza? That's probably tough.
It's
So-
almost nicer to reroute down Payson.
Well, that was one of the things I heard proposed. Could you redirect things around? It's a question.
It's 6:25, the meeting upstairs should be starting in about a half an hour.
You mean in
In 5 minutes.
It's like,
5 minutes. I live in another time zone. So, Any last comments anyone wants to make before we adjourn?
I'd like to ask something.
Please.
This is so totally out of proportion to what you're talking about. Well, I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to get some signatures on my nomination papers.
Are you running for mayor?
I am indeed.
I thought you might be.
You don't have to vote for me inside.
Yeah, it's just getting,
We should do that off
just
camera.
getting
You
you
are the
on.
second person
That's a-
today.
That's an off-camera thing.
Yeah.
This is a campaign thing?
I think we need to get a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I never thought
We need a
this was
second?
a campaign.
Is there a second?
All right, I'll see you upstairs.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we're done, so if you want to...
I'll catch you outside the building.